is Matthew Movies coming at you with my review of Fantastic Four, the 2015 superhero film that there is very little to be called super in. This movie, man, I am not a fan of this movie at all. I know I'm not exactly tilling new ground here. I have spoken to a few defenders of this film, which I find quite baffling because I really see very, very little to really invest in here and to enjoy. I mean, it's just not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, in my view. I will say this: I don't think it is 100% awful. I think there was a bit of a bud of an interesting film there. And, you know, you've heard a lot about Josh Trank, the director of this film, where he spoke about the fact that there is a great film that was there that nobody will ever get the chance to see, and there's a part of me that almost believes him. It's kind of a bit hard to swallow considering the abomination that we ended up getting, in my personal opinion anyways, but I felt like there was a setup there for a pretty good film. When they were showing Reed and Ben when they were youngsters and their relationship, I mean, it was very different than any kind of Fantastic Four story that I've ever read. I'm a devotee of the comic books. They were one of my favorite superhero teams of all time. If you looked over there, I have several of their comics that I've read and hold dear to my heart, and I've never seen them be this kind of, have this like these dark backstories. The whole thing with Ben and his dad was very, very different. It was definitely going for more of a kind of Dark Knight or a more gritty vibe than the stories that I've ever read, or certainly the previous films. But even though it was a complete departure from the characters as I knew them, I thought that it was an interesting choice that could have gone somewhere. Unfortunately, I just really don't think it did. As soon as they jump forward and they're adults and they're working on the technology to go to the negative zone, it's just so many bad choices. And to me, one of the most amazing choices in this film was the fact that they create this team, right? And they go to the negative zone, they come back, and you see them like very, very quickly discovering that they have powers, and then all of a sudden this block of words come up, and it's like a year later, or however many months later, or whatever it is, and they completely go past them figuring out their powers. And this is an origin film again, which again was a bit of an interesting choice because most people were aware of the origin of this comic story, but the fact that they went with it, fine, whatever. I can roll with those punches, and even though it's not the most interesting thing in the world to see yet again, but you're going to tell the origin story, cool. What was the one part of an origin story that I find to be the most interesting is them discovering their powers. I mean, you look at the original Spider-Man movie where, you know, he's trying to figure out how to do the web, and it's just shooting off, and then you like Iron Man where he's trying to figure out how to fly. Like, I mean, there's the best moments of the origin being told on film is watching them figuring their powers out. So of course this stupid movie decides to just jump right past it. And speaking of just the team, I mean, all four actors that played the characters, I think, are all phenomenal actors. I've enjoyed them in so many other films, but man, I mean, there's just nothing to this movie. I mean, they make Michael B. Jordan boring to watch on film. They're all seem to be relatively committed to their characters, but none of them are having any fun whatsoever. Which again, I understand was the tone they were going for, but it was very uninteresting because of the fact that there wasn't any drama there, so you couldn't even really invest in that tone. It was just like watching a bunch of people taking themselves way too seriously, and they were just so uninteresting. I mean, I'll give them at the very least that the fact that I thought they did a good job on the look of the Fantastic Four once they became their characters. I mean, the thing is not the best in my view. I mean, it's very, very animated looking in my personal opinion, but I mean, it still looks pretty great, and I thought the way that Johnny looks when he flames on was really, really cool. And then you throw in the fact that they got Doom in this movie again, and yet again, I don't understand why they can't just not do this to the character, like why they can't tell his story properly, like why all of a sudden he has to be wrapped up in the origin story of the team and get powers at the same time. I mean, Doctor Doom is not a super powered being. He is just has the ability to take these guys on because he's so brilliant, just like Reed, and is able to create these machines and use his vast money in order to take them on. And I'm sure there's comic stories where he gets powers. I mean, I'm pretty sure I've read them, but that was the original mythos of the character. So why they have to wrap him up in the whole thing is lame, and why they made him so emo in this movie at the beginning, where he's, you know, this hacker that's got so much attitude. I mean, it seemed like he could have been out of the movie Hackers. I mean, that was really lame, and just that whole thing sucked. But I mean, there's two things about this movie that drive me by far the most nuts, other than that whole 6 months later or whatever it is. I hated what they did with Sue. I love Kate Mara, the actress. I think she's extremely talented. I mean, I first became aware of her through American Horror Story and House of Cards, and I thought she was phenomenal in both, and I was very, very excited to see her version of Sue, but I thought it was extremely sexist the way that they handled her. I mean, they are all working on the technology to be able to go to the negative zone, and they're having their maiden voyage, and you have Johnny there, who's her brother, who is just basically the stunt guy. He's there to be able to do the physical stuff, and the astronaut, kind of, and he goes. You have Reed, the scientist. He goes, makes sense. Doom, another brilliant character. Him going, makes sense. They call in his Reed's old buddy Ben for no particular reason, just because they think he can help defend them. But Sue, another scientist who's worked doggedly on it, and again, her brother's going, well, she doesn't go, of course. Why would she go? She's a girl. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, they're going to have the Fantastic Four, the four of them, three of them go, and their villain, a dude, goes, who shouldn't be involved in the origin, but of course the girl can't go, because that would be not wrong. She's a woman, and we have to protect her from this danger. I was like, oh, come on, like, how dumb is that? And then it adds such a huge problem to the rest of the story, because yes, she gets powers still, but she gets their powers because she's there when they all come back from the negative zone, which on the one hand, you know, again, I hated the fact that she didn't go, but if she didn't go, that was a pretty decent way of explaining how she gets her powers, because the door opens and some of that energy comes across to her, right? Well, at the end of the movie, like all these superhero movies, of course, there's like a beam of light into the sky, and Doom ends up coming back from the negative zone, and he opens up a pathway to it, and so there's this basically like this portal to the negative zone. So all the people that are near this fight would be exposed to the same thing that gave Sue her powers, because she wasn't there. She was just present when there was a portal to it. So does everybody around that fight have superpowers? I mean, it was such a can of worms that was stupid. It was sexist. It was irritating. Drove me nuts. And I hated the final fight in this film. I mean, you have Doctor Doom, right? They're setting him up like where he's going to be this big supervillain, and they have a fight, and what does he do? What's his big move? Throwing dirt in people's faces. Johnny comes in and attacks him, throws some dirt. Throws them dirt. Ben throws them dirt. Reed, dirt. Sue, dirt. I mean, are you kidding me? You have a villain, and it's like he got called called out when he was trying to steal second, and he's kicking dirt on the umpire's shoes. I'm like, oh, come on. So brutal. So brutal. This movie, it makes me so frustrated. I'm not a fan of it whatsoever. Like I said, I do think that there's a couple little nuggets there that could have been interesting, but overall, I think that the word abomination comes to mind, and it's pretty apropos. So those are my thoughts on this horrendous movie. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree with me that it sucks, if you're one of the rare defenders, whatever. Other than that, please hit that like button, hit that share button. I would love if other people came and checked out this video, and that would make it much more likely. And speaking of which, if you're new here or you just haven't done it yet, please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell. It'll let you know when I put out a new video. You can come and join the conversation. Other than that, have yourself a good day.